We begin all things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your remarkable work.
Thank you so much. So my name is Erin O'Keefe Graham. At this point in time, I'm running a deep tech incubator here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's full of pretty amazing innovators that come from all sorts of places. We are focused on deep tech or hard tech. So this is really physical products that need to be created before they can be brought to market. While we have some that come through Dalhousie University, we also welcome every other founder to come in. They don't have to be affiliated with the university. And so there's a really important piece here around accessibility and inclusion, and how there's a lot of great innovation happening in Atlantic Canada that we want to make sure we can support. I think that the world of deep tech, physical products is an interesting one because the barriers to creating this kind of work are quite high. What you can dream up and develop in software and mock up pretty quickly is quite different when you're designing something to deal with climate challenges or try to improve the life of our aging population and introduce things into the healthcare system. So there's barriers in terms of the time it takes, the relationships you need, and certainly the cost of resources or even testing. UX testing could be a click of a button. Testing a new net that's more efficient on the environment requires going on the actual ocean. So, we try to really look at how deep tech founders have a lot of barriers, and we want to make sure we're removing those as much as we can because we are sort of operating with this purpose of helping founders create a healthier world.
Love it. That's amazing. And can you articulate your mission and vision for us at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I joined the Emera Hub 3 years ago, I've been in a lot of bigger organizations. And so it was actually part of my work in years past of developing purpose statements and concepts for organizations because it has to be such a true expression of who they are and why they were built in the first place. So when I came into my role, I wanted to establish our purpose as being the place where we help founders build ideas into physical products for a healthier world. It's important because it really does start at idea stage, and we have founders who can be very technical, but also others who don't have those skills, but have a concept for the kind of healthier world they want to create. So we want to make sure they have the supports they need to make that possible. So with that purpose in mind, our vision is one that we're actually in the process of evolving. We just passed our 5-year mark. A few of those years, as of course, were COVID years. So it's pretty hard to run a physical place when you're not allowed to have everyone in the building. But in 5 years, we've accomplished a lot. And there were a lot of goals among those who were here for its sort of first days. Who said, we want to make sure this really is a hub for a lot of people. This cannot be just for university. This cannot be something where people feel it's exclusive because we have a role to play in this community. Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada broadly welcomes a ton of newcomers. This includes international students who really want to stay and have great business ideas, but they don't have the supports for that. This includes newcomers from war-torn countries, obviously, too. We have a lot of people who actually start in Atlantic Canada who could stay here for 2 years and then move to another province if they like, which I see as an awesome challenge for proving to them that this is actually where they want to stay. But if we want to do that, we need to make it possible for them to innovate here. So as far as the vision goes, we really want to deliver on some goals around economic impact and social impact. We want to make sure that we're supporting a green economy. But we also have at our core venture, just pure venture growth. So What a lot of universities in Canada have as a challenge is that we have so much great research in this country, but not a lot of it makes it to commercialization. So that's central to who we are as well. We'll be evolving our vision this year for the next 5 years and really looking at the kind of role we want to play in our community as central to that, without taking away from that desire to make sure we're really getting great research out into the market in the sectors that we focus on.
Fantastic. And congratulations on your 5-year mark.
Thank you.
Awesome. And what inspires you about your work?
Okay. Having spent many of the years of my career in consulting and working with really large organizations in many countries, I think I'm most inspired by working with organizations who are starting as a founder of one. You know, when you start on the very first day with your idea and you don't know what's next, it's actually an incredible opportunity to see someone who has like true curiosity for building something amazing, true empathy for their customers or for the communities that they're trying to serve, and is open to growth. You know, that's such a key part of what we do. We talk a lot about the discomfort that is required to build a small organization, or anyone at that, for that matter. And so the people that I get to meet really vary. You know, I have had a founder who wanted to improve the quality of testing for well water. A lot of people depend on well water. We've got a racialized community in Nova Scotia called Preston, where tons of people rely on well water, and they have to wait 2 weeks to get results to find out whether they can drink it or not. And so we wanted to develop a test that was immediate and you get the results on your phone, right? So he's an environmental scientist, and that is the definition of purpose-based venture, right? You know, and so much of the world of building that venture was new to him, but he was trying to really build a team that was okay with knowing this would be uncomfortable, trying to figure out how much new learning they had ahead of them, but keep focused on that goal. Come from totally different perspectives. We had a woman who was like in her 50s, whose parents were getting older and they weren't mobile. And she was at like Rogers, you know, she was not at all in the tech sector. She came in looking for a student who could help her develop something that would help her parents. And she partnered with this 4th-year student who is now her co-founder. So there's like this 23-year-old guy who's come through, developed their product. They are selling as far away as Florida on these beautiful lifts that can go to ground level so seniors can be independent longer, you know? And I think those combinations of people from so many different areas is really, really interesting to me and really important.
Oh my goodness, for sure. I would love their contact actually, because I have a 91-year-old father, and I think my mother is 88 now. And that's her problem. Yeah, she can't walk, like, those stairs, the ones that circle all the way up hardwood. We've been there for a while, but now it's like can't manage. So got to get that link from you.
Yeah, it's awesome. So it's truly inspiring. Like, and I, having spent so many years in Toronto, which is a wonderful place for innovation, there's a lot of fintech, right? It's a lot of the same stuff, and it's great. But I have to tell you, seeing people who are making things that are genuinely going to have an impact on our lives is so inspiring. So I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And what about challenges or barriers? What have you faced, and how are you working to overcome them?
Mm-hmm. We have founders who come from very different areas. So just putting on my kind of learning design hat for a moment, what a PhD student needs in terms of support for their learning is very different from what someone who's coming out of the community needs. They're both important, and they're both going to be uncomfortable. And if I'm honest, I think they both could learn from each other, but creating the conditions for that can be really challenging. What I learned in the private sector is we adults don't like formal learning anymore. We just want to kind of jump in and do it. And that can be really challenging to design for. I think the other thing is that as founders, they know that there's 17 things they need to be doing at once. Everything feels like it's on fire. We really want to build certain things in that we think will help them for the long term, but it's hard to get that across when they have their own view of what's urgent, right? Diversity in the tech sector is very important to us. We're looking at ways to do what I call it's behavioral interventions, so that rather than trying to put people through training to sort of understand their bias, let's do interventions where we can actually help people understand how they make choices that might, select away from hiring racialized co-founders or employees, and then we're going to improve diversity as part of that. So we're trying to find ways to just build a much more inclusive community, without, forcing people to take training session after training session, and that's a tricky balance.
Absolutely. I just was actually had another interview with a really superb, profound sister who about 5 years in as well. She has leads a all female led organization that really is strong on data collection and really bringing companies, accountable to a lot of these things that we say we're going to do, but now, like I compared it to the calories that Canada now has to put on all the restaurants, So the data is there, so yeah, it's amazing and it's needed. And do you have any set of key priorities that you're working on right now?
So there's a few things, we learned last year, maybe 18 months ago, that BDC had a new set of guidelines for startups in Canada around ESG, and another set gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but they've got really good guidelines. I really want to start our founders out right at the beginning, but it's hard when you're just trying to understand who your customer is. So one of the things we're trying to figure out is how do we add the right resources at the right time, right? So that kind of connects to the last thing I was talking about. We want to make sure that we're giving people sort of just enough learning. And we also want to balance the time they spend with some of our academic expertise with the outside industry. They both have merits, but they play really different roles. So those are some things we're working on. I think there's a programmatic goal here too. On founders are ultimately the business owners, right? So they have to make their decisions. We want to support them with experienced founders who can challenge them and can give them ideas. They're not in charge of their decisions, but we want to help them with kind of the right level of adjustment on that. I think that we're always working on our pipeline, Maad. I think on the research side of things, researchers love to do their research. That's the kind of person that they are. And if you know anything about startups, startup life is very different from being in a lab. And so I think we've got an interesting challenge in figuring out how we can maybe convene talent that want to start companies around the research IP, while getting that support from the academic, but they want to run the business, right? So how do we convene that? How do we create the conditions for that? It's a really big challenge for us. And I think for all of Canada, really.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that for sure. Absolutely. And so how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
When I think about social impact, I'm encouraged that a lot of our larger organizations are making this part of their strategic priorities. I worked at KPMG many years ago. I had a good colleague there in social finance, Tanya Carnegie. So she was doing that work, some work in social finance for a long time. And I think setting precedents is really important. I know, for example, RBC is just in the process of renewing their purpose and their social impact. And I think about organizations like that setting precedents. That's a really important thing. With with that said, we need the grassroots organizations. So if we see organizations that are larger making commitments that their foundations are going to fund those at the grassroots, then we're moving in the right direction. I think I'm closest to the community side of it. I want to see people believing that it's possible for them to have success in this area. I recently hired a colleague who came from the US, and she was executive director of a platform that helps social enterprises called Crew for All. And their whole mandate was to help social enterprises really get off the ground and operate. And I think it's her philosophy there that I want to make sure that we try to build into what we offer. We need to make sure we have open doors, that people don't think we're just for the university or university graduates. And that's going to be important, because I can't have the perspective of someone who has lived experience in an area that is of social need. Not possible. So as long as we're working on having those doors open and having success stories that model so that people see themselves in founders, then hopefully we'll move in the right direction.
Absolutely. And even touching back on data collection, a big bank like RBC, it's that accountability again. So they do need to go back to the drawing board, because when they don't see any increase in things like, hiring more women, hiring more visible minorities, now we have data. So, now they have to back to the drawing board. So it's good. It's all needed for sure. And what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like for you and your colleagues?
I'm thinking. I want the Emera Ideahub to have a sustainable operating model. We were very grateful recipients of funds to build the building we're in, to afford all of the state-of-the-art equipment that's required to make these advanced medical devices and ocean tech equipment. And we need to renew that. But I think sustainability to me looks like recognizing that we have so many different kinds of businesses that need to emerge. Deep tech is very cost and resource intensive. It requires a lot of support to get these folks who are running these companies out into the market. And so we rely in some ways on government funding, but we're also hopeful that we can create a very sustainable model of our own, so that it doesn't feel onerous, and that our sustainability means we're in a position to support with that just enough programming that we aren't costing a ton either. I think that we are trying to prove out our value in terms of the way that people grow and build companies in the market, but also how we create a set of skills and a mindset for these founders and their employees, and that has a knock-on effect on Nova Scotia and in the region. So those are our metrics for success, certainly around that kind of impact. I think for the team, it's feeling like we've got genuine diversity in our participation. We have a very, very diverse group of team members, so we're proud of that as well. And so we hope that people see themselves represented in our team.
Awesome. Wow, this has been really good. Can't believe we're done already. So do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action at this time?
I could share with you a bit about our values. Along with establishing our purpose, I wanted our values to be clear at the beginning and something that we check back on all the time. It's something that I try to get founders to do too, because they should be your decision filter, right? We have 3 values. One is lead with inclusion, and that is always checking ourselves on whether we're being inclusive in our choices, in our words, in our processes, in our systems. What are the ways that we can really confirm with ourselves that we're doing as much as we can for that? The second one is bias for action, and this is partly very true of engineers. Like, these are makers, right? They love to make something with their hands, and I love that about them. But we can all take that approach, because we should always be iterating and designing and redoing in a way that reflects what people's needs are, right? So there's sort of an element of, try something, let it be okay, and then see if you can try it again and make it a little bit better. So we try to embody that as well. And then the third one is clear is kind, which is 100% a Brene Brown phrase. So I give her full credit. But it's important, because I think when you get founders around each other or presenting to investors, they get a lot of sort of nice feedback of, yeah, we're not interested in this time, or, good luck. But they don't get the clarity of when it's really not a good receptivity, people don't tell them. And so we really try to be honest with people that, we're not seeing this as being viable. But you do have strengths in these areas, maybe try that. I don't know if that's resonating, but I think there's sort of, being nice is not the same as being kind. And I don't think we do people a service. People are pouring their lives into these ventures, and often their savings. And I feel it's irresponsible not to be genuine about that. So, we're not going to have an impact that affects our society in a good way if the founders themselves, are running themselves into the ground on something that won't be successful. So I hope that's helpful or useful.
Yeah, absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure. Because myself, I'm into, and it's just the fact that of health purposes, my own health, I took a stance to be like, let me change, to better my own health. And I became
Yeah.
a vegan chef. So I'm a certified vegan chef. I
That's
came out with,
amazing.
yeah, these different, foods. And I was this close to doing a vegan butter.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things but when you don't have the support, or somebody says, well, it's good, but give me that little tidbit to take back to the drawing board, so that
Yes.
I have the courage and the will to come back again. But if there's
Yeah.
more, and don't give me a why, that's where the discouragement
The, like,
into place.
feedback is a gift. We need it. We
Yes,
really need
so
it.
much.
So,
Yes.
so that's how I think we all create sustainable businesses, or lives for that matter, right?
Yes, yes, that's right. Wow,
Yeah.
this has been incredible.
Oh,
Erin,
thank
I
you.
really appreciate you. And on behalf of SETSI, we appreciate you taking the time out and making such a positive impact for community. And, I know a lot of people will value this recording and save it so
Thank
they
you
can
so much.
reach out. Yes, for sure. So we will close the way that we began, by acknowledging all the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So once again, we thank you so much, and this is not the last time. I'm sure Setsi and yourself will all come together
Thank you
and
so
continue.
much. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure, and honored to spend some time with you. So thank you, and have a great afternoon.
You too, my dear. All the best. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.